Greetings and salutations. Thank you for lending an ear to the voice of the times, brought to you this Sunday, January 9, 2022, by Wilcon Depot, the country's leading home improvement and construction supplies retailer. Shop conveniently 24/7 with Wilcon online store. Just go to shop.wilcon.com.ph. For today's editorial, New Year, same old concerns over DPRK. The latest surge of COVID-19 cases reminds us that recovery remains fragile and prone to postponement. That fragility makes it difficult to ignore other potential threats to recovery, including North Korea, known formally as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or DPRK. Fewer people might be bothered by that rogue state if these were normal times. Unfortunately, these are not. North Korea's supreme leader continues to send mixed messages that cause anxiety. On January 1, Kim Jong-un placed his country's economy and food security on top of his government agenda. That part was positive. But then, he declared that his regime would continue its military buildup. Just days later, North Korea tested yet ballistic missiles. Such belligerent displays are why the United Nations imposed economic sanctions against North Korea. But instead of being discouraged, Mr. Kim ramped up military exercises and even resumed his program to develop nuclear weapons after his historic summits with former US President Donald Trump had failed. On Monday, the UN will discuss reports that the DPRK now has a hypersonic ballistic missile. Granted, North Korea remains officially at war with South Korea. But the fighting ended in 1953, when the two Koreas signed an armistice and split the peninsula at the 38th parallel. These days, North Korea seems stuck in the Cold War era, even as South Korea has blossomed into a first-world country. Mr. Kim, of course, blames the economic sanctions for suppressing development in his part of the peninsula. But to use an analogy, how does one help a pauper holding a bazooka? We question the argument that nuclear weapons deter an attack from South Korea and its ally, the United States, which has about 28,500 troops stationed along the Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ. North Korea still has powerful allies, particularly China and Russia, both of which cover the DPRK under their nuclear umbrella. Also, the ballistic missiles tested by North Korea do not appear to be defensive in nature. Their growing range, along with efforts to equip them with nuclear warheads, gives North Korea a first-strike capability against the US mainland and practically all of Southeast Asia. As mentioned in previous editorials, a resumption of hostilities in the Korean peninsula will have global consequences. Many of the largest, most consequential economies could be drawn into the conflict. China and Russia will likely back North Korea, with the US and Japan on the opposing side with South Korea. Right conditions. Naturally, the economic recovery that the world hopes for this year and beyond requires the right kind of conditions to prosper. Filipinos are all too familiar with how instability and the lack of security can rattle investors and hinder development. The Philippines aims for an economic growth rate of at least 7% in 2022, according to the government forecast. Southeast Asia, for its part, is expected to grow more than 5% this year. Different experts may have different figures, but the general consensus is that there will be economic growth. North Korea casts a cloud over those prospects, more so if the situation escalates. Some believe, as we do, that the world is already turning the corner, as it were, despite the emergence of the Omicron variant. The world, perhaps through the UN, cannot afford to allow North Korea to derail those prospects. Of course, North Korea is not the only threat to global peace and economic recovery from the pandemic, but that hermit state is arguably the most unpredictable after COVID-19. In a sense, North Korea should be the easier problem to resolve because only one state can dramatically change things. Years of on and off negotiations, however, suggest otherwise. If North Korea does manage to behave, the first beneficiary will be the North Koreans themselves. As said before in this space, Mr. Kim should divert some of his lavish military spendings to basic services and the general economy, just like he mentioned on New Year's Day. It may be too much to wish for, but the status quo in North Korea should not be part of the new normal. And that's the editorial for Sunday, January 9, 2022. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to our digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and listen to the Voice of the Times.